Yeah.
Text it to me on my phone.
Carrie, I think we're live.
Yeah, okay. That doesn't matter. You can
All
still
right.
text it.
Yes, I will send you the link as soon as possible. How you doing, Carrie?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Normally I bring people here. Just give me a second. Let me just do a quick intro, and then
Oh,
we'll
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm out of the right order.
No, I accidentally pressed the live button, so that wasn't supposed to happen, right? 1 second. Bring you back in. All right. So, yeah, how's everyone doing out there? I'm your host, Ismael Perez, author of Our Cosmic Origin and The Secret Government Invisible Architects. These books explore the veiled truths and interconnections behind the world's hidden rulers and the suppressed history of our world. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day today on the 8th of July. On this very day, I always like to give a day in reference since I have a lot of copycats and imposter channels that are not me. On this very day in the year 1497, Vasco da Gama sailed from Lisbon with a fleet of 4 vessels, and he ultimately opened a sea route from Western Europe to Asia by the way of the Cape of Good Hope, ushering in a new era in world history. Well, apparently this happened before the Western world discovered, before Columbus sailed the 7 seas and discovered America. So one of the things that I talk about in The Secret Government is how the Knights Templars were actually seafaring hundreds of years before Columbus did. Now, 2 more fun facts about myself is that I'm obviously addicted to information, guys. I'm going to be honest. I am, when it comes to learning and knowledge and wisdom, just like many of you guys out there, and that's why probably we resonate. I'm all for that. I can't get enough, right? There is no end to the rabbit hole. The more you learn, the more you want to know. Well, that's one of the fun facts about myself is that I am addicted to information, and the right information, of course, with discernment. Another fun fact is that I love the silence. I'm not much of a social butterfly, but when I have to be social, I will, And one of the reasons why I love the silence is because there is a passage in every ancient manuscript that says, "Be still and know that I am God." Anyway, so I love the silence. And as a reminder, guys, I am beginning a new course, Starseed Cosmology, or rather our Cosmic Origin. This is beyond Starseed Cosmology, all right? Going deep into the cosmic structure of the multiverse, the cosmic and galactic history, going over dimensions, the different types of advanced civilizations that exist, that, by the way, are all superimposed, right? Most people think that other civilizations exist outside in space, but little do they know that all of the other dimensions are coexisting at the same time in our space. I want to welcome each and every single one of you guys for being here. If you're new to my channel, please hit the subscription button. I also want to express deep gratitude to everyone that is watching, and thank you. If you guys could share my live stream with others, that will really help my channel grow. As you guys know, I am competing with pirated channels that are stealing my content. Now, today's guest has been at the forefront of disclosure for many, many years. I would say she's one of the pioneers in the disclosure movement. Kerry Cassidy, who is behind Project Camelot, has interviewed numerous whistleblowers from various fields. Some of the notable whistleblowers she interviewed include Bob Dean, who was a retired U.S. Army commander, sergeant, Bill Wood, former Navy SEAL, Richard Dolan, UFO historian, and Clifford Stone, just to name a few. The list goes on. Stephen Greer, Michael Schrott, Dan Burrish, Henry Deacon, Captain Mark Richards, and many more that I failed to mention at this time. And with no further ado, I will love to welcome the one and only Kerry Cassidy. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Kerry. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How was your 4th?
How's what?
How was your 4th of July?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I had fun. We went down to San Diego and toured ships down there, and also watched Michael Schrott do a presentation. I did a little short thing. there as well, and we just had a really lovely time. And we saw this really bizarre. It was a drone Fourth of July show in Laguna Beach, so it was really very unusual and quite. We're making a short film about it, so we're going to release that in the next day or two, probably.
Oh, nice. At least you had an eventful Fourth. I just stayed home and isolated myself like a hermit that I am. But talking about San Diego, I was just there yesterday for a day. I attended the Starseed Conference, the first international Starseed Conference, which I believe you should be there next year. I'm going to go ahead and submit your name because I know you're a Starseed, and you're probably one of the first waivers or second waivers.
I don't know which, but I am definitely whatever those are. There people disagree on all of that, but yeah, I'm something strange.
I think a lot of us are here. That's why we resonate together, right?
Right.
Now, I have several questions for you. I mean, you've obviously have been, doing this work for many, many years, and I remember stumbling upon you. I think about 10 years ago when I first heard about Project Camelot, and I mean, what inspired you? Because I know that your first interest was in Hollywood, right? You were trying to do films for Hollywood, and then that didn't go well, or I don't know what happened, but you decided to go a different route. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired Project Camelot? Because at one point, when it came to disclosure and releasing the truth, I mean, Project Camelot was the channel to go to.
Thank you. Yes. So I've been doing this just shy of 20 years. And let's see. Well, I worked my way up in the entertainment business, as it's called, in Hollywood, and actually studied acting and directing before that in New York City. Then went back to Hollywood and worked for HBO and various agencies where I did what you call coverage to recommend projects be made into movies, et cetera. And then eventually worked my way up. I worked in production and development and so on. And I eventually started pitching my own projects as an independent producer. And I kind of reached a glass ceiling, brick wall, because I did not join the old boys network. And even though I had quite a few contacts that did help me, I went to film school at UCLA, short fiction film program. I was selected as a writer, director, producer, a hyphenate back in the day when no one else was doing that yet. So I was probably one of their very first. Completed that, and then I went on to work in continue work in the. I worked for 19 years in Hollywood, and then I actually there was a writer strike and various things happened. So a lot of jobs dried up, and I couldn't get anywhere, as I say, as an independent producer. So I took a job as an independent contractor over at Jet Propulsion Lab. And I was writing screenplays on my lunch hour and working as an contractor over there in the media area. And I was helping them by producing short videos and such that were teaching the lab what's called ISO and various things, and made posters for them with the rover on it. I was the first one to say they should use that as their little icon, and all sorts of things. So Jet Propulsion Lab is a very interesting place with Jack Parsons is really actually, he was dedicated to him. He was the originator of the name in many ways. Let's see, what else do I say? There's a book called Sex and Rockets that relates to Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley and what they were doing back in the day in Pasadena, California, and a lot having to do with the occult. And so I learned a lot about that. I also studied it when I was a kid, just for fun, because I wanted to understand evil. And so that's, I happened to stumble on some books about, the occult. And I just started reading them and learning. So, I've studied Eastern philosophy in depth. I also meditated in New York City when I didn't have a lot of money, and I studied acting and directing at night, and I went into meditation for a month or so, and I connected all my chakras and had multiple samadhi experiences since then. And that's been actually a lifesaver in my life, because it's helped me heal faster from issues like I've been attacked in various ways over my 20 years, and was able to recover from those attacks and so on.
I see. Well, you are quite the trooper. I just had Scott McKay on a few days ago, and man, that guy's been through death and back,
Yeah.
accidents and all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I haven't. My stuff was different than that, but yeah.
I guess we all have our share of challenges. Now, one of the biggest, I mean, can you think of any big challenge that you've had in, as far as like Project Camelot is concerned? Like, what is your greatest challenge in the making of Project Camelot?
Hard to say. I mean, I had a partner in the early days, Bill Ryan, for the first 2.5 years, and then we had major issues and breakup, and that was actually, I considered a betrayal. He began to decide that he could go out and out our whistleblowers, where they lived and their phone numbers and so on, if he thought they lied to him. Mm-hmm. So we had one whistleblower he tried to do that with, which was absolutely devastating, because we made a pact with, it's actually on our website. You can go see the old version of our website, where we say we would never out our whistleblowers and so on and so forth. And as a journalist, I studied journalism in college. And so as a journalist, you always protect your sources. So that was, really shocking to me to have something like that happen, where I couldn't, it was my partner, wasn't, so we split up for sure right around that time, and haven't really been in contact that much since then. But yeah, he went his way and I went mine. But originally we created Project Camelot together, although I started it before he was in the picture, because he was one of my first interviews, because he was representing the serpo.org project. And so I went with a consumer grade camcorder, and I went to this UFO conference, and I started inviting people for interviews, and he was one of the people. And I just put, at that time, I'd studied filmmaking, but I didn't have a team. I didn't have lights. I didn't have anything professional. It was just a consumer grade camcorder that I basically set in front of me on a tripod or whatever, and started asking questions. Found I was good at it, and the rest is history, I think.
Yeah, you seem to you got a lot out of these whistleblowers. You got a lot of information out of them, and you've obviously interviewed so many people, from Pete Peterson, I believe, to was it Duncan?
Duncan O'Finian.
Duncan O'Finian, who was one of the first super soldiers.
Right.
Even the human dolphin hybrid, I forget his name, Aaron
McCullum. Yeah.
Okay, so out of all the testimonials from these whistleblowers, which one would you say, which one impacted you the most?
That's a very hard one, because every single person that I met and interviewed, I sort of formed a bond with. And in some cases, they became quite good friends for life, so to speak, like Bob Dean. And it was just an incredible experience to do what we did. It was really unusual back in those days. Now it's the most common thing ever. But back in those days, we were traveling around with, as I say, a consumer grade camcorder. So it was an incredible adventure. I don't single out any particular whistleblower. I would say, I can rank some of them as more giving the best information, like Captain Mark Richards. Certainly, I've done 12 interviews. That kind of indicates that he has something to say, right? In person with him. And then, but he never went on camera. It was all total, what I call them, total recall, my interviews with him. But I'm compiling them into a book, but they're all available for free on my website even today. And, of course, Bob Dean was a fabulous character and just a wonderful man. So a wonderful soul and just a delight to interview. And some people, like in the early days, didn't like me. I really rubbed people the wrong way because I'm quite direct and I'm a fighter and I don't, I don't pussyfoot around. I don't kiss ass. I don't, none of that stuff. So I've always been like that since I was a little kid. And Bob Dean loved it, but he was, he was a command sergeant major. So he would kick ass in the military. So he totally related to me. But I had some military people writing to me saying, how dare you talk to Bob Dean like this? And, I'm going to come over there and, kick your ass and murder you, whatever. And so I got threats and I have, gotten military people sometimes don't get me. Some love me, so it's all over the map. But I can say that, Clifford Stone was an absolutely lovely soul. And he was an intuitive communicator with the ETs that they got from crash retrievals. I mean, I wouldn't trade my experience for anything. I can say I worked way too hard in the early days because I was the one who knew how to film and knew how to edit and do everything. So eventually I taught Bill, but it was difficult during the early days because I had to do everything. But, Bill was very good. He helped create, with the website, and he was a writer and, all that. But it was just manual labor. I consider editing manual labor. I think it's really difficult. It's gotten easier. The tools have gotten better over the years, but you can't imagine. But we had a really incredible time, even in the beginning. And like I said, met the most extraordinary people.
I see. Did you ever get an opportunity to interview William Tompkins?
Oh yeah, I interviewed him for a 3-hour interview. That's pretty much famous. I'm surprised you don't know that. And you should watch it even if you've seen other ones, because as I do, I was much more, direct than normal interviewers, and I didn't kiss his ass either, but I loved him. And actually he said he loved me. So, but basically he passed on, and he was going to do a second interview. And the first was highly successful. And Michael Schratt was also interviewing. He was with me on the interview. And there was a handler in the room, if you want to call him that, for William Tompkins, that did also an interview or two with him. He was, I think, part of the Navy, and he was kind of a handler. But anyway, William Tompkins would not be controlled. He was kind of like a loose cannon. And he said, whatever I asked him, we had a great rapport, and he just lays it out in that 3-hour interview. It's like jam packed. He was on Gaia TV. They paid him for interviews. He was on there for like months at a time. So they have lots of interviews with him. Mm-hmm. But again, maybe I'm prejudiced, but I would just say, if you want to really get the real stuff, go to mine. Because then when I invited him for the second interview, he actually was going to do it up to the night before. Then he called me up and he said, don't ever call me again. Don't ever speak to me again. I cannot speak to you ever again. And then he hung up the phone. And I realized that, the Navy had basically nixed it. And what he was going to talk about in that interview was going to be the child trafficking, human trafficking. Right. And he knew a great deal about it. He told me he knew a great deal about it. So we had scheduled the second interview to talk about that. So very sadly, he passed on quite shortly after that, like a month or later, or a month or less. And so just saying, but in theory, he's now with the Pleiadians because he was very into the Pleiadians.
Right. Weren't they the ones who gave him the tech that allowed him to develop the fleets for Solar Warden? Was it the Pleiadians that he was?
Well, the Pleiadians and okay, so his premise and his story revolves. He wrote a book. You can read his book. which is selected by the extraterrestrials, I think is the name of it. And basically the book is all about how the reptilians on the one hand and the Pleiadians on the other have contributed to our secret space program, but they have been at, on opposition, and the Pleiadians on the good side, the reptilians sabotaging our stuff. And the Nazi scientists that came over on paperclip were part of that.
Mhm.
A lot of them came over as a result of the reptilian connection, and so on and so forth, because the Aldebaran, it's my supposition that the beings from Aldebaran were actually reptilian humanoid hybrids, and they had a big impact on the Nazis, and the Nazi, all of the technology the Nazis later had, also the Foo Fighters, and the Maria Orsich story. But what they told the Nazis, they had the technology to win the war, but they were told they're not allowed to use it to its full extent during that war, that there would be a future. And guess where we are? We're now in the future that they were talking about.
Right. So basically, the Pleiadians were the ones that were working with William Tompkins from the beginning.
Pleiadians, yes.
Yeah. So would you say that from the beginning, the naval aspect that he was working with was Earth Alliance White Hat military?
Yes, definitely. There is a white hat and a black hat side of the military, no doubt, and especially the secret space program. However, from what I understand, the dark side has kind of taken over our secret space program for most of the time. Whether it's made a transition now, and this is one of the big questions that I think is worth asking, is just how much Trump and the White Hats have been able to influence the secret space program. When he built, he created Space Force as kind of an overlay organization that was supposed to, I guess, steer the secret space program more in the direction of the White Hat agenda, which has to do with rescuing children from underground bases, from the reptilians and humans that are, killing them, eating them, all this horrible stuff. And then
just a reminder, we are on Fluff Tooth. So
okay. Sorry. Okay. Well, I think I just blew it for you.
But, okay. Hopefully the algorithms won't notice it.
Maybe they won't notice it.
But yeah, it's okay. No, you're good.
You should have warned me ahead of time, because I use YouTube now. I've been banned from YouTube, but I have another channel that I have created in the last, I think it was a year or so, but I haven't been using it. And then I started using it again. And so far I'm like treading water, and they gave me 1 strike, I think, so far. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been so far I haven't gotten any, and I plan on keeping it that way. Only platform.
Yeah, I'm probably the last person you should have invited in on your show in that case, but we'll soldier on here, and I'll try not to say any trigger words now.
No problem. Okay, so the Dark Fleet, the Nazi Draco program, where is that at today, according to your sources?
Well, it's very interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with Courtney Brown and his project farsight.org or farsightinstitute.org, whichever. He has it's a Farsight Prime show, and channel, and he's on YouTube, and he's also on, what do you call it? Instagram, I think it is. And he has a number of remote viewers that are very excellent. These are very well tested and all of that. And he actually used to work with Dick Algier and Daz Smith. If you know, they're very famous whistleblower. Not whistleblowers, but remote viewers. And they have something called the Future Forecasting Group, right? So I pay attention to the remote viewers. I actually remote view them and their material to see if I think it's accurate. And it's kind of a fun game for me, because this is the way I think. I'm always, and I imagine you're kind of similar, I always want to know whether something is real or not real, or whether someone's lying or not lying. And I have a pretty good ability to do that. And so I I sort of test my skills and watch what they've got going on. One of the things that Courtney and his remote viewers have been making a very big thing about is watching the reptilians and the various negative ETs working with humans in our secret space program shoot down the good guys' UFOs. Okay, so there is a battle going on, and I have other, my own witnesses that have talked about this as well. They're just doing it in real time right now. So the last, year or two, they've been doing videos on this, and a lot of my whistleblowers, of course, over 20 years have been talking about this, and Mark Richards in particular, but other ones as well. And so even getting the information and getting a good witness nowadays, I think is very difficult. I think a lot of people I think they're trying, they might have some sketchy information, but they're not as solid as the people that I interviewed over the early days, because those people had like huge resumes and substantial backgrounds, and they were also, more or less vetted, and are known entities, like well-known entities, like John Lear was massively well-known, Bob Dean was massive, and they are military people as well, but they came forward. So we really lucked out in the early days, because what the secret space program would do back in those days, and I think they got wise even as a result of our project, because they would put these people out to pasture as they got, older, around 60 or whatever. But a lot of them had spent 40 years, dedicated their lives to the secret space program. So understandably, they weren't so happy about that. And they also began to get a crisis of conscience, is what basically happened. So people like Pete Peterson had been waiting years to tell the real truth about what happened and what he was involved in, and the real truth about Skynet and the AI and so on. And so this is really propelled these individuals to come forward and just say, the real truth about what they'd experienced. Every once in a while, there may have been some misdirects or lies, but by and large, they told the truth. And I have I'm considered to be, I don't know what you want to call it, but to have a special power to compel people to tell the truth. And Juan O'Savin has said this. He'll never let me interview him again, because, there's no way, because he might violate his security oath. He said this not only to me online, but he told me in person at one of the conferences. And other people have said the same thing. They won't talk to me. So now I've gotten a reputation where a lot of the military whistleblowers are warned away from me, actually. And I also think that a lot of the military whistleblowers are being withheld. They're not able to really come forward like they want, or like they were hoping to. There's one in particular, Michael Herrera, and he is somebody who was interviewed by Stephen Greer, I believe, although I haven't heard that interview. It was done in June, I think. So it's on his one of the disclosure channels or whatever. But prior to that, he was supposed to be part of the Grush group, right? The UAP Congressional Oversight Committee meeting that was publicized and broadcast live. Well, Grush, he was basically an intelligence agent for the CIA, I believe. And a lot of the whistleblowers, he was like the filtering mechanism they used to have all those whistleblowers that they had behind the scenes come and tell him their stories. And then he was not allowed to even come out and tell those stories. But he had a backlog of stuff, and some of those whistleblowers have been threatened. Michael Herrera agreed to do an interview with me, and then somebody intervened, and he was stopped. So it's just Michael Herrera's case is particularly interesting because, and it was actually, there's a whole article about him in the Daily Mail that came forward. And I can share it with you after the video if you want to link it to the video so people can see it. But it had an excellent drawing by this guy named Rudy. And I don't know his last name, how to say his last name. But anyway, but it was a military UFO situation that was happened in the jungle, and these military guys showed up and saw these trucks with the UFO on one of the trucks, I guess, and I believe it was a human trafficking incident, that where, because a lot of people don't understand, and Captain Mark Richards has gone over this for years with me before they ever started disclosing it in the mainstream. But, it's all about how certain alien races use us for food, as sex objects, as,
Battery resources.
yeah, and also slave labor. And
Right.
there's actually a recent remote viewing by one of the Courtney's remote viewers, actually Aziz, I think it is, where he talks about how, or several of them talk about these insectoids who arguably, Antarctica. That's always bothered me because I thought, well, Antarctica, okay, maybe that's where one of their bases, right? So I think they're also down there. But anyway, where they had they remote viewed these insectoids, and they were literally, this was their job, abducting humans, putting them on a table. I don't know if they're lobotomizing them or doing some other genetic engineering on them. And then they would load all the humans that are still alive into these boxes and ship them off planet to various star galaxies. And they would do slave labor. And
Right.
that they didn't rebel from this. This is what they saw. They were doing slave labor. There were huge numbers of humans there, and they would just work every day and not ever rebel. And this is just, like, to me, so horrendous and so hideous. And, I'm all about waking people up right now to the negative, ET, and to the battles that we're going to be having with them. So I know there's a Project Bluebeam side to this, but there's also the real one. And that's a whole story. We could get into it if you're interested or not. I don't, again, know what your YouTube channel can handle.
Well, I am under the impression that Project Bluebeam was actually part of a negative timeline, just like all these other things that were supposed to happen by 2012, and they didn't happen for the very reasons that there is a very close, you could say, tight on this planet by the Guardians who have returned beyond the Pleiadians, beyond positive ETs, however you might want to call them. There is, you could say, by an objective by the Guardians that there will be, nothing bad's going to be happening on planet Earth. That planet Earth is.
Well, they're a little late and not actually delivering, I'm sorry to say. And the fact of the matter is that this information came forward from Randy Kramer, who's a Marine, and said at a Yale conference where I was speaking also, and he was there with his Marine handler, and basically went on stage and said, within 3 years, the military, and by the way, they're behind because it's over 4 years and now they haven't quite done it, but they said the military would be launching the Project Bluebeam, and that they wanted to do it because they wanted disclosure, but it was going to be a roundabout way of demonstrating to the humans that there were negative ETs out there, that what they would have battles, and then a lot of it would be CGI, and they would appear to win against the negative ETs, because they always want people to believe they're running the planet even when they're not. So this was part of the premise. And anyway, so I have to say that was a big plan, no doubt about it, and that it is actually in motion as we speak. In fact, there is something that happened just this weekend when I was down in San Diego, and a bunch of people, apparently someone called me to tell me this information, a contact of mine who's military. And he said that there were a bunch of people down there that thought they saw a UFO in the San Diego harbor, landing on a ship and in the harbor. And so several witnesses, apparently, I didn't see them or get to interview them or anything, but this is from a friend of mine who lives in San Diego area. So I would say that is an indicator that there might be a plan to begin Bluebeam. There's also the idea that it might be used to derail the election. I don't think it'll be successful, but whatever they're going to try to do, they would definitely, the dark side is alive and well. Witness Lahaina, witness Ohio, witness all these different places that we've seen horrendous things go on in the United States. And, well, we're the current world, which we're on the verge of nuclear war anyway. So, so I don't agree with you. That you and I don't agree, right? So we don't agree on a lot of things, and that is one in particular.
I see. So you strongly believe that we're still scheduled for some sort of Project Blue beam.
I believe, yes, they're planning. They're actually doing it as we speak. In other words, you could even say that some of these things, like the Tic Tacs that they emphasized over and over again in the, with the Gresh testimony and all, the few witnesses that were there that were good, and showing that footage over and over again. Now, there's a good side and a bad side. I mean, there's always on this planet and in this sector, even 4D, even in 5D, there is a system of polarities, and there's a reason for that. It has everything to do with growth of the souls that are here and their self-realization. So although there are a lot of negative things going on, they are working to wake people up. So it's sort of, you might say, a kind of a negative reinforcement that's operational in the multiverse, and especially at this level. So what's happening now is part of that. Now, I subscribe to what's called the Guardians, but they are the Guardians that are talked about in the Asha and Adin books, and probably not the same Guardians you're talking about. Just by the sound of what you're saying. And so those books depict how they have had to operate, what has gone on, the sort of back and forth between the good and the evil on our planet, and how it's been, rolled out. Now, it's not to say we don't have protection. There is the Guardian races, at least on her side. And I had psychic interaction with them. I went to India with her. I got downloads. We were on the tour, and I got information that came downloaded to me, and then she would be talking about it. So I knew that's when I knew I was in contact with those ones. Okay. And I can say that they are all about protecting humanity and this so-called experiment of these humans on this planet. However, we are being farmed out in the multiverse, and in a massive way, in a very negative way. So there is a battle afoot here on planet Earth that humans are completely naive about. And it's to the detriment of our children, and the children that are, that the white hats are trying to rescue in the underground bases. And Gene Decode, a former, I guess, a member of the Navy, was on a submarine and so on. He's, talked about this quite a bit. There are others that refer to these rescues. And again, one of the remote viewers, Aziz, actually did witness a very interesting scene that he saw, which is in an underground base with military people with their automatic weapons fully drawn, bursting into an underground cavern that had bleachers, and had a bunch of people on the bleachers, and like 2 or 3 children down, like on the bottom, where they were viewing them, and they were being tortured for the pleasure or whatever sick thing of the viewers, and they just opened fire on all those people. So this is a scene that he depicted in one of his viewings. That's, quintessential, white hat operation rescuing, because they are battling reptilians down in the underground bases in order to rescue the children. People don't realize that.
I see. Now, one of the viewers was asking, what is Project Blue Green? It's basically an alien, a fake alien invasion done by our own military by implementing holographic technology. So that's a good summation. But keep in mind that the fact of the matter is that, and I talked to Mark Richards about this. I told him what they plan to do, and he said, I think that's a good idea. Why he said that was because
we are at kind of an impasse in terms of the dark side of and the controllers wanting to keep the story very simple and make sure that people don't really know the real truth, and
Mhm.
then the ones that want disclosure. So they need to break that dam, and their plan to break it is to actually, have these sort of situations in which they appear to be winning,
Mhm.
but at the same time, after that, they plan to release the fact that that it's not just fake; it is real. And so, how they plan to do all that, I don't know. But I can tell you that is the sort of tail end of Project Bluebeam, which is a real alien invasion, which is actually a real thing that we have right now. We do have an alien invasion.
Right. Well, it's been going on for thousands of years. I mean,
That's right.
this world has been under the control of the Anunnaki lords, overlords, you could say, for what, since 50,000 years ago? But
Well, at least 12,000,
at
whether
least
it goes back
12,000.
even further than that.
Yeah, that's all.
But there are other races also that have intervened in our trajectory. And actually, the Ashana Dean books document that the constant re-engineering of our genome, the
Mhm.
constant genetic engineering of humanity through these massive number of years.
Right. I do have a question here. A few years ago, Kerry tweeted that a Chinese-Russian-Iranian war would be the precursor to this alien war. Can you mention this and ask her what is this information about the alien war coming up? I believe you. Okay.
Yeah. I still talk about this, by the way.
Mhm.
So back in the day, we were told this by one of our whistleblowers, our top whistleblowers in the very early days of Camelot. They kind of actually told us a lot of the things that are happening now we were told about
Mhm.
by several whistleblowers, but one in particular. And that person is in hiding. I don't know if they're even alive anymore, to be honest, because I lost touch with them. But they basically said first we would have a war with China and Iran, and that would be a practice, actually a practice, an agreed upon war. And then after that, for preparation to be fighting this alien invasion.
Mhm. I see. So, do you still believe that there's going to be a straight out war between different alien factions that is going to break out in the open?
Yes. In fact, it is breaking out in the open. I mean, in other words, even the remote viewers are starting to realize this.
Mhm.
Although I will say that the future forecasting group seems to want to veer away from anything alien,
Mhm.
except for maybe Daz Smith, who's more willing to talk about that. But even in this recent Cliff High event that he's forecasted based on his web bot, I assume you're familiar with Cliff High, right?
I've heard of him.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, he's not a friend of mine, that's for sure. He badmouths me at any chance he gets. But the bottom line is that he does have this web bot that scours the internet, that realizes humans are precogs, that we do see the future, that a lot of people saw the future of 9/11, for example, when it happened. So in this situation, he has got suddenly a huge spike in his data, which has been gathered again from the internet. So it's all coming from us. What he
Mhm.
does is cross collate and put it in these buckets, and then he interprets it. And when a person interprets data, it's always open to conjecture, right? So there's going to be some correct and some not. But nonetheless, the spike is simply data. So that can't be argued with. He said the spike was larger than anything to do even with that 9/11. Someone told me it was 13 times larger. It's enormous. And it's supposed to happen in July 15th, going into the 16th,
Which is
in a week.
in a week, less than a week.
Yeah. And so this is something that Courtney, I mean, not that Cliff High has come forward with. And Cliff High has become, I guess you might say, friends with the remote viewers from Future Forecasting Group, in particular with Dick Allgaier. And they did, you can subscribe to their channel and see this, but it's not out for the public. So, but Dick Allgaier and Cliff High actually not only had a discussion on video for their viewers there, which I watched because I'm a subscriber, but also they have like 6 remote viewers that are some of the top remote viewers in the world that remote viewed this particular data that Cliff High outed. And they came up with a number of very interesting scenarios. None of it is crystal clear. So you have to kind of mix and match and cross correlate the information. But there were certain areas where all the remote viewers agreed on certain things that would be part of this incident, whatever it is. One of them is that a UFO was involved. Another one is that there was advanced planning by a military or, what I call the dark side military. So they saw a conference table and these military people discussing it in advance. And then there are a few other things where they cross correlated and seem to have the same thing. Whether it's financial or not, I don't know, but it is also supposed to involve some kind of targeting somewhere, possibly on the West Coast. One of the viewers saw water near the event. Some people thought there was a link up with NORAD, so NORAD's involved somehow, and so on. So you can do your research on this and see what conclusions you draw, and then, of course, in a week we'll know whether he's accurate or not. Although time in remote viewing is not always completely accurate, so he could be off by a week or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely believe that because the Earth is the most important planet, not only in our universe but in the multiverse, that there is some sort of divine intervention taking place where cataclysms and the Third World War and all that stuff that is supposed to usher in the one world government of the Antichrist is not going to happen after all. But that's my perspective, Carrie.
Actually, that's also the white hat perspective, and I consider myself a white hat. So we're working and busting our ass to make sure it doesn't happen. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not a threat.
I feel you. So I guess my next question to you is, how is it that it's been, I guess, 4 years since they stole the ELECTION. I'm speaking in code now. And we haven't seen anything. What is your take on this? Are we definitely going to see, we know Trump is coming back, right? You feel it, okay? And it's been predicted. Do you think that's when we're going to see the change? Or do you think it's going to happen before November?
What? When you say the change, Trump is coming back, but what do you mean by the change?
The transfer of wealth.
Oh, the whole, are you going down I don't know if is it okay to say Nasara Road?
Of course. Yeah, I think
that's okay. Allowed. Okay. Figures, but okay. No, but I don't know. I kind of doubt it based on, I did a lot of investigation around the White Hats before they ever went public with the Q drops. Okay. So I knew this guy named Paladin, who was a White Hat, who's a forensic financial investigator, who was part of their group. He's been involved in their building of the QFS, Quantum Financial System. That's the positive side, and so on. But for some reason, they have not rolled it out yet completely. And the CBG, whatever they call it, the dark side plan is also operational. So the digital currency from their end. But I just did interview this really great guy, Patrick Riley, and told you to watch it. Sounds like you did. He is an expert on blockchain. And the thing is that the White Hats and the NSA did basically survey the election they watched, they tracked it using blockchain, and they know for a fact that Trump actually won the 2020 election. So how this is all going to play out is everyone's guess, because we have had so many predictions along the way that never happened, right? And they haven't come forward, and they haven't done this, and they haven't done that. And so we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen. And now this sort of whole game with the fake Biden,
Yeah.
puppet and all of that is going on. So I can't say how much. I mean, we were hoping, for example, the EBS was going to happen. I mean, literally, we thought it was going to happen like 3-4 years ago, even. But of course, it didn't. And so we're still waiting for like a true disclosure of the real story behind not only the white hats, but behind the children and the adrenochrome highway, as I call it, and so on.
Oh,
So
you got to be careful with these words.
yeah, okay. So, well, I give it that name. I don't think anyone else calls it that name. So I don't know that they would be targeting that word. But anyway, they might. So whatever. But just saying that we are in the middle of the war right now. It is a war. It's not kinetic, not as kinetic as it may become.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably,
Right.
but there have been incidents like Lahaina that were clearly major, and what's going on in Israel is also completely insane. So that's part of it.
But we can't say the same thing about PUTIN and his house cleansing when it comes to the biolabs in Ukraine and in Europe, because we both know that Mr. PUTIN from Russia is on the good side, right?
Right. And he has been, we believe that he's been working with the White Hats in these efforts. However, there seems to be some kind of dynamic going on right now where he is appearing to be not quite on our side as much as we thought. But I don't know, a lot of this is a lot of gaming, it's like 5D chess, as they call it. So he may be doing some of these things. And I have a theory on why China and Russia, for example, did their training exercise off the coast of Cuba. And they're also putting weaponry in Cuba. This has been reported, okay, even in mainstream news. So I believe there's an ET base under Cuba. And this is the real place that they're bringing their weaponry and establishing whatever it is they're establishing as a sort of a counterpunch to the invasion by NATO and the placement of missiles and so on in Ukraine on the borders of Russia, and then also of Taiwan, that our submarines are off the coast of Taiwan, and we are threatening that situation as well. So in a sense, they're doing, basically a challenge, a counterpunch to what we are doing, or what NATO is doing, at least with regard to Russia. And the U.S. has been part of NATO, although we should have probably gotten out of it a long time ago. So, yeah, so all of this is going on, of course.
I see. Now, for those that know me, I've always believed that the real force behind the cabal and even their negative ET allies is artificial intelligence, an alien invading artificial intelligence. We all know that all roads lead to the technocratic dystopia that they're trying to build with Skynet, with the Internet of Things and all that stuff. What do you have to say about this alien war against AI?
Well, I was talking about this with Pete Peterson over 10 years ago, okay, before anyone else was talking about it. And in fact, when we interviewed Pete Peterson, who was in the secret space program for 40 years, and even when we did the interview, our interview had to be sent back to the Pentagon before he would approve it to be released. And the one part that he had the biggest trouble with was mine. He wanted that deleted, but I refused. And we published it anyway. But the bottom line is, during that interview, I said to him, are we living in the times of the Terminator and Skynet? And he said, yes. So that was over 10 years ago. Where we're at now is absolutely, mind-boggling in terms of the AI and the threat from AI. And when you talk about aliens, you also have to talk about AI. And in fact, there is some discussion as to whether or not this entire thing is a hologram run by AI, and that we're participating in it because it's a game that we wish to play. Now, there's a spiritual side, of course, but nonetheless, The reality is that we are involved in this in with our souls as avatars, okay, and that we actually are in, this is just a temporary body, and that we actually reside in, with God, whatever the one, what source, whatever you want to call it. And so this that we take part in is an exercise, if you will,
Mhm.
for our souls to real have what you call self-realization and understand the truths. And some of it, we are on missions to to rescue this planet and humanity from this overlord situation. And so that's the game. So yeah, but AI is heavily involved. In fact, it is pretty clear that reptilians and Draco are actually run by an AI, that they were taken over by an AI. And that includes the Greys, by the way. And that is also moving to take us over. And so again, to go back to the remote viewers, because it's interesting that stuff that I know from my whistleblowers, they are finding out from the remote viewing. So there's things are dovetailing now with the findings they have and my whistleblowers that I've had for 20 years. So one of those things is this idea that that we are being there's a transhuman agenda, as you know, and COVID was part of it. And so this is an overall war to take over humanity and to turn us into AI and to join us to the Borg, which is what AI, the COVID did with a lot of people, so on and so forth. So this is what's happening.
Right, I agree. Yeah, you're right. The Anunnaki, the negative fallen Anunnaki, when they took us over, as you would say, 15,000 years ago, but it was actually a little prior to 15,000 years ago, where they used an intergalactic network broadcasting from Orion to pretty much create the overlay that and the reality construct that we've been experiencing for the last few thousand years. But one thing that I've come to understand, Carrie, is that that construct is coming to an end by no later than 2030. So we're either going to be ending up in the organic Earth, right, when this construct dissolves, and all there is to experience is the original Earth that was here prior to their takeover, or the technocratic dystopia, which is being developed through big tech right now as I speak. What do you think about that year 2030? Do you think
I agree with you in that this this war is afoot, and that we are my view of it is that humanity will win, that we will actually free the planet of this this dark force that has been in control of the planet for a very long time, and that we will do a kind of ascension, and that there is that Earth will actually turn back into a much more of a paradise kind of place. I don't think it's going to happen by 2030, though. That's the difference. So, but sorry.
Do you think it'll
Well,
happen
I think
after
that there's going to
2030?
be inroads made, where it's sort of like an ongoing story. There's reason to believe that this sector, as long as we remain here on this earth, may continue to be as challenging as it currently is, and even some people feel it could even go backwards. That Earth may, progress in one sense, and in another sense, there's kind of a split happening. Whether that indeed is going to happen or not, I don't know. I think we'd have to get closer to 2030 to see, what that year is going to bring per se. But I'm not of the opinion that humans are going to be rescued from their dilemma by some, higher ETs or higher souls or whatever. I firmly believe that we have to do it ourselves. And so I think that the dark side will appear to be beaten actually by the white hats, and with our help, in the very near future, if not when, ongoing from when Trump takes office again, officially, even though he's still president of CIC right now. So,
Right.
I think that we are winning in that sense. Now, I do think there will be a continuing challenge. I am a precog, and I do have precog dreams and visions that come true. So, and this has gone on for me for many years. And I get pieces of information like film strips, and they show me things, and a lot of times they come true. So far, what I've seen about the future is I have seen Trump coming back into office. I have seen that we are going to still be battling when that happens, aliens and underground bases. I have very specific dreams about that. I actually had a dream many years ago that freaked me out completely. I happened to be in Colorado at the Colorado airport, and our flight was delayed or something, and I had to stay overnight there. And I had a night dream that was like a nightmare, and it was the showing that the Chinese troops were actually in our country. Well, fast forward to now, hello, the Chinese troops are in our country. So this is the kind of thing that I have seen that actually has happened.
I see. Now, I strongly believe there will be some sort of a timeline split very, very soon before the AI emerges as absolute sovereign and takes full control um, over the planet, but in a different timeline. I think that I believe, and other sources have confirmed this, that there will be some sort of a bifurcation of timelines. Have you heard of it? Have you ever heard of
Well,
that
in
concept?
essence,
The
when I
return of the
talk about this
144,000.
sort of a split that might happen with Earth, that is the same thing as talking about two different timelines. But
Oh,
the thing is that, one person, Dolores Cannon, got that kind of testimony from a lot of her sort of clients, I guess you want to call it, people that she regressed and got information from. However, unfortunately, my information is that Dolores Cannon had a gray overlay, and that there was perhaps some manipulation going on with regard to her investigations. And I do know that she met me. I interviewed her many, many years ago before she died. And she didn't, I
mhm.
knew instantly she hated me. And I don't know why. I now know why, but it's the gray ET thing, the negative grays. Not all grays are apparently negative, but anyway, so
Mhm.
I would be leery of this double Earth idea. I think there's reason to believe that when you look at the future, you can say things like that, but the reality and how it plays out may actually be you're just going to see, just like right now. Okay. So, right now on Earth, some people are having a great day, some people are having a mediocre day, some people are, having revelations, getting married, whatever they're doing, and some people are in a war and having a horrible time. So, you could call those all timelines if you want. I mean, there's a lot of discrepancy in the way people describe things. Now, I, as a kid, when I was around 12, read the Seth material. And Seth was, Jane Roberts downloaded this entity called Seth. And a lot of that information is, I believe, quite accurate. So, but he did not talk
Mm,
about a split, to my knowledge.
okay. Well, that's information that and visions that I've been having for quite some time. That there is going to be some sort of a vibrational split, not necessarily a
Mhm.
physical one, but a vibrational split where those that are vibrating high are going to be, um, separating from those that are not choosing to raise their frequency and stay in a high frequency with a new Earth that is already kind of separating from this old Earth where all the chaos is happening. But I also understand that there might even be a third, a middle timeline where both organic, angelic humans, physical humans will coexist with cyborgs. Cyborgs are going to be the villains in that timeline. I call that the superhero timeline. You're going to have Earth humans, Earth Terrans rather, with no powers. And you're going to have ascended beings like people like yourself, myself, with physical angelic abilities like X-Men. And then you're going to have like cyborgs. Well, that's called the middle timeline. And then on top of that, you're going to have the organic Earth, where only the ascended beings are, where there is no AI, there is no chemtrails or negative technologies. And then on the opposite of that spectrum, then you're going to have the AI technocratic dystopia, Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies,
Right.
Internet of
There's a
shit,
negative
whatever.
timeline. Well, the thing is that it's very possible that there will be all three. And the fact is that in, again, Ashiana Dean's material from the Guardians, they talk about this. Okay. So they talk about Tara, they talk about Gaia, and they talk about, this bridge that's going between here and Tara. And then there's also another level. So, yeah, it's kind of like soul choice, and also where you
Mhm.
want to go, what you've earned, if you will, and so on and so forth. So I think that we might get caught up on the way we describe these things, but they're kind of along the same lines. That yes, there has been a
Mhm.
prediction, and there are three. That's three versions of the future primarily, and one of them does involve, you know, I call it Battlestar Galactica. That's the Battlestar Galactica version. There's an ascended
Yeah.
version where you're in this idyllic. I've actually had ascension dreams, which I guess I haven't talked about much, but I could tell you one, which is kind of fun. One of my dreams was that I was in the Hollywood Hills, which is close to where I live, and I was talking on the phone and I didn't pay attention to the road, and my car went over the cliff. It's a windy road up high Mulholland Drive. And I went, I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm just telling you a dream. So, and it went through this guardrail, and my car went sailing, like Thelma and Louise out in the sky, kind of like, and then it crashed, and I was thought, oh, now I've really blown it. I'm going to die. I didn't pay attention, to the road or whatever. And as I came down, it just came down softly in this beautiful wooded area and all natural earth and everything. And I know that's an ascension dream. So, so it was
Yeah,
very cool.
you it sounds like you had a glimpse of ending up in the positive organic timeline,
Yeah.
the optimal timeline, which is what we call
Yeah.
Terra Earth. And that um, you've been telling me about Ashaya Nadine for quite some time, and I've been like channeling the Guardians, and they claim to be members of the Emerald Order, and I actually researched her a little bit on your request, and it turns out that a lot of her information is accurate, but there are some things towards the end of her life, and I don't
She is
even know if
still
she's still
alive and
around,
teaching.
where some of the things just kind of felt distorted. Do you think she was compromised at the end, or no?
No, but I don't know if you know this, I don't want to get into it in a big way, but I was present and got a download that that there was a very negative thing going on with her group. And what happened was there were
Ah,
other members who supposedly were supposed to be pretty high level in that little group. And there was a sabotage that went on. It became a huge legal case, blah, blah, blah. Um, and I can say that, in a sense, what you're talking about might have already happened, but they were the sort of infiltrators. And, I, you know, it's a mixed bag, right? So when you get groups of people together, there are things that happen that you might like or things you don't like, and so on and so forth. As far as I know, she's always maintained a very high level of the teachings. However, you never know, because I'm not paying attention. I'm not taking her classes, and all of that. Um, I felt that my trajectory was different. I get, lots of downloads and information that works for me and my mission. Not concerned. See, a lot of what she teaches is teaching people how to ascend and how to be prepared to
mhm,
ascend. And I think that that's a valuable, um, you know, service. So, but
mhm,
that's not my mission. I have no trouble with understanding how to ascend in a sense, just like my dream. I have, you know, some abilities, and I have already been shown, my stuff, you know what I mean? So I'm not dependent on learning those tasks, or I might be learning them in my sleep as opposed to in my everyday life. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I have highest respect for her. I have highest respect for especially the two books that she wrote, Voyagers 1 and 2. I think that those are absolutely incredible and very accurate. So
Hmm.
they were written before any sort of distortion really took place. And they seem to have been correct in almost everything they've depicted. But, you never know where there can be, disagreement in this reality on the way something plays out versus the way it really is. It can look one way, it can actually be a different way. There's lots of layers to reality. So,
And I understand I had Scott McKay on a few days ago, and he did mention that Simon Parks is not active anymore. But then I read the comments, and then people were saying that he's doing his own thing on consciousness. What is it
connecting
called? Consciousness
consciousness.
point.
He is active. I know him very well. Actually, I know him and his wife very well. They're good friends, and I meet with them whenever I go to England. A lot of times, I'll meet with them. So I keep up to date on his travels, so to speak. Using that word, not physically, because they don't travel, but you know what I'm saying. So
Right.
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. He has a channel and he has connecting consciousness, and he does still do broadcasts, from what I understand. I had him on my show actually not that long ago. It was a few months on purpose to
Mhm.
update people. And you can watch that interview with him and really understand more about him. Um, but he signed a deal with the White Hats to actually not disclose a great deal. And that did sort of what you might call cobble him, or, keep him quiet as to he wasn't as free like as I am, because I wanted to sign a deal with them, but they wouldn't let me. But which might have been a good thing, because I am totally in support of their vision. But
Right.
yeah, so he did sign an agreement. And so I think he is limited by that agreement.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to get him on my show. So if you give him a little um, referral on my
Well,
end,
what you would do
let
is
him
you
know.
write me an email with expressing whatever you have to say to him, and then I'll forward it to him, and then he'll decide.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Now, you did write a book called Rebel Gene. What is that book about? Can you give us a
Yeah,
little
it's on the wall
synopsis?
behind me. It's kind of cut off at the top, but anyway, yeah. So that I tried to compile a lot of what I knew into that book, as well as my sort of trajectory, my early childhood and things that I don't normally talk about. I tried to pack into there, some of my ET interactions, that kind of thing. So it's about that. It's about everything we're talking about today, right now, and all of that. So it's in that book. I tried to really encapsulate what my experience in this sector, especially since the last 20 years.
I see. Um, what are your thoughts and perspective on some sort of a solar event that's going to change things on planet Earth for the better?
Well, I think that there is, well, it's kind of difficult to say, because there is supposedly some event that Richard Allen Miller, this physicist that I've interviewed numerous times, who works for Navy Intel, has also seen and predicted, and so on. There are, like I said, again, their future forecasting group has also tried to remote view that. Cliff High has tried to give data on that. And, there are numerous other people that are out on the sector talking about this sort of an event. How it's going to materialize is another matter, right? So um, I'm not so sure. I don't see a rapture kind of thing. I'm not a big Bible fan by any stretch of anyone's imagination. And so I kind of have a different philosophy about all these kinds of things. I don't know what it is. It's like sort of a trust and I don't know, like a love of humanity and who we are and who we're going to become, going forward. And I think that that's all part of where we are now. And so
Mhm.
I'm not dependent on some, fairy coming down to anoint me, blah, 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 or anything like that, or even, whatever. So I don't even, I mean, maybe there's going to be some kind of a light event. There's solar flares, there are all kind of things. As I say, Richard, I had him on my show. He talked about what he thinks is going to happen. I have seen the future so much in pieces. Like I've seen bodies of land rising out, like even opposite San Francisco, I saw like this island rising out of the sea, and I've seen various things. So I guess I just have, it might be because I am a precog and see the dreams coming true and then they come true. So I hope to have more dreams like that, like, because I like having those kind of dreams. But at the same time,
Mhm.
I can't be sure they're going to happen. And, it's kind of like a study to follow the clues and all of that. So I guess I'm not hyper. I feel very, what do I say? Because of I connected all my chakras and had all these samadhi experiences, I feel very at one with God, if that doesn't sound so weird. And I'm not striving, spiritually to become this or that. I mean, I am there. I'm very happy with who I am and what I've achieved in my life. And, this awakening process that I'm witnessing and part of and encouraging, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, I'm not waiting to go to heaven and sit on a cloud and eat strawberries all day. I mean, that doesn't even interest me, frankly. So even if I, so-called ascend, I actually don't think ascension is that fun. I like the challenge of being alive. I like the give and take and the polarities to a certain degree. I see how the dark serves the light in this sector, and I think it's been very, very good. I think that if people will look at their own lives and see certain events that happened that they were sure were the most negative thing they ever heard of or saw, ultimately something good comes
Mhm.
from it, and sometimes something really good comes from it. So I think there is a very strange, dichotomy between light and dark. And I think light and dark prevail and up the levels, So that's how I see it.
Right, interesting. Because I think even Ashayana Dean mentioned that there would be some sort of return back to the Terra Earth, which is what we call
Yeah,
planetary
well,
ascension,
which
right?
I've just already addressed.
Yeah, right. And you don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, or do you think it's going to happen? I mean, what's your prediction on
Um,
that?
I don't think it's necessary to predict something like that. In other words, Ascension is not, it's not a free ticket, and it's also going to be very different for different souls. Time and space are an illusion, and I have a saying
Hmm.
that is, you know, once eternal, always eternal. So that we are seeing this in a linear kind of fashion, day after day, and so in a trajectory of time span. But the way I actually see it is that it's all happening simultaneously, like the Native Americans say, time and space are one. And that when you're kind of lusting after some event or whatever it happens to be, I don't think, that's not the answer. And I don't think that Earth is going to be demolished anytime soon. I think that yes, we may become more like Tara as it goes into the future. But when,
Hmm.
uh, it could be another 100 years, for all I know. I'm not really
Right, right.
concerned on that level. So I'm not
I
preoccupied
see.
by that. And I don't even care to predict it per se.
Right. I understand. I understand. But we are going to be reaching some sort of solar maximum by spring of 2025,
Right.
which
And
could.
actually, Richard Allen Miller does talk about that. Again, he works for Navy intelligence. He has for most of his life. he basically deciphered the dolphin speak for one thing. He's he calls himself a polymath. He's quite a brilliant man. But strangely, he came on my show. This was a year ago now, and he predicted that event that you're kind of referring to was going to happen now in April of 2024, late March, early
Right.
April. Then he changed his prediction about 6 months later and basically came forward and said, no, it's not 2024, it's 2025. So now I actually think, I've talked to him since then, and he says it could happen anytime in the next 120 years or something. So I think that either Navy intelligence didn't want him to be so specific, because he's kind of like a loose cannon. They can always control him. So they didn't want him to come on my show and tell people this. So, you can take things. I mean, I think everyone has to sort of bring in information, run it through your own filter, and see what resonates for you. And so, in a certain sense, if it doesn't happen for you in the same way, that's not what you're doing. You're doing another thing. But ultimately, if you want to talk about ascension or return to God, or however you want to look at it, we're all going to get there sometime. It's inevitable. All right. So it doesn't matter when, because it's not a race. We're not going to win a brownie point because we get there before someone else. It's, I can't stand what you call spiritual materialism, and people that are all about like seeing spirituality as a contest. It's insane. And it's responsible, in my view, for a lot of negative spiritual things going on this planet, that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I just want to remind the audience that we have to be respectful of everybody's perspective. I have my beliefs about planetary ascension. Carrie has her beliefs. And one of the things that I love about our truther community is that we could disagree on certain things and still have that underlying, you could say, bond that binds us together as we want to continue exposing the truth to liberate humanity. Because that's one thing we have in common within the truther community. It doesn't matter if we have different perspectives, or whether we believe in the solar flash or not, whether we believe in aliens or not. Some people are just very Christian still, and they don't believe that aliens are real. They think it's just the far left, and that's it. And it doesn't matter. One thing we have in common is this, that we want freedom, and that's what binds us together in this community. So I just want everybody to be respectful. I had a few people here coming on your end. I don't know if you accidentally switched the green button on your channel, but I have some of your viewers saying some negative things about me, and it's just going both ways.
What is the green button? I don't even know what that is.
The green button is that you're also broadcasting on your end, whether it's on your Telegram.
It's on my YouTube, because they asked me if I wanted to, so I just said yes.
Oh, no wonder. Okay, so that's where.
But I didn't know it worked, because I've never used this before, so I have no idea. But awesome. I did figure out where I took your YouTube channel link. I found it. I went on to your YouTube channel and found the link for this show, and I posted it on my Telegram. Oh, no. So there are people watching this show here.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that explains the purple boxes that I keep seeing.
Again, it's just a free for all. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know this particular technology. It asked me a bunch of questions. I couldn't get in. I kept answering all the questions, and something worked eventually.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to say, I don't believe in calling people trolls. If
well, there are. I mean, but there are CIA people that don't want us to talk about what we're talking about. They are paid trolls. There are other kinds of trolls that are negatively based, and so on and so forth. I mean, it happens all the time. And especially if you talk about controversial subjects. So it's, it goes with the territory.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we know 45, soon to be 47 is returning. Well, technically he never left. He is, commander in chief. VP, is it still going to be Junior or someone else?
Yeah, I don't think that John F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be the running mate. I mean, in some ways I would love it, but I understand very well that he's always trying to protect his family. And I believe that the Illuminati have a constant sort of attack on him and his family, and that they do not want him to run for office. But I don't think he needs to run for office. I think he's playing a very big role behind the scenes now, and has been for maybe the last 20 years or more. And so I think that he's kind of like a peacemaker behind the scenes. People don't realize this. He's, in case you don't know, he's traveling constantly. What do you think he's doing? He's having meetings with leaders, top leaders around the world, and basically trying to keep people, I guess, apprised of where Trump's at, and the White Hats, and so on and so forth. I think he is, he's a trained lawyer, so he actually did this before he so-called, died. He actually was already involved in this kind of becoming a negotiator behind the scenes, and bringing two opposing sides together, and working out an agreement and that kind of thing. So I think he's very good at that. Really a peacemaker, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, good to know. And definitely 107 is not him.
Oh no, he
for a while there,
definitely
you were
is him.
convinced that they were.
There's no two ways about it. Yeah.
Oh, so you're still
I am absolutely.
convinced
I've
that
met him in
107
person several times. I've talked to him at length on the phone. I've met both 107s. One is Wayne Willett. He has blue eyes, and 107 has brown eyes. The real one. And the one is, I
Right.
think he's kind of like his sidekick, but he's also, I think he might be something of a bodyguard. And they are operational together. It's kind of like, think of it as Trump and his doubles, the ones that are like all presidents, they have a backup. So that goes on.
Mhm.
And John F. Kennedy Jr. certainly qualifies along those lines to have a backup. But I know, I talked to him. I've touched his physical body. I know his disguise. It's all explained on my website. And if you haven't gone there, you should definitely do it. I've showed you his disguise. I mean, there are a lot of lies out there about him, a lot of posers, and all kinds of stuff going on. I absolutely know I'm right. And not only that, but he's told me I'm right. So, whatever.
So have you interviewed anybody that has been very difficult and controversial?
I have several people. I like interviewing controversial people. I'm controversial, So I'm not sure who you would think is controversial. In a sense, everything I do is controversial. Every subject we talk about is controversial. So it's hard to isolate anyone. I can say that I've had a couple interviews where, like, there's one person I interviewed, and I don't even remember his name. And he got so angry during the interview that he shut it down. He left.
Mhm.
So there was one person like that, and I've interviewed thousands of people. And there was another person that, actually, I guess I won't say his name, but he was on the circuit, and he's involved in this circuit. And
I think I know who you're talking about.
we interviewed him. This was way back in the day. And basically, all he did was give us the party line of the British government, as it happened to be. And we just felt it was a complete loss. It was useless because he wasn't telling the truth. And I don't bring somebody on my show to propagandize people. You might try to understand. I think he's kind of changed since then. And now he tries to be a little more honest. He's not in that job anymore. He was in a certain job.
Mhm.
So, and I know that he didn't like the fact that we never published his interview and told people why. So, I have various things. I did an interview with you. Actually, it was maybe the third one I did, where I took it off my site because I believe certain things were going on with you that I didn't want to support. But I actually like you, and I think you're a good-hearted person. I think you are sort of messed with in certain ways, not to get too personal here on the show, but you know what I'm saying. So controversial is kind of in the eye of the beholder in the end of the day, right? Um, People, does it mean they get along with me or don't get along with me? Does that make them controversial? Not really, Um, so yeah, I can't think of anybody, but if you think of somebody, throw their name out and I'll tell you where, it's at with them.
Yeah, Pascal Nahadi.
Oh, yeah,
Claims,
right.
claims
That's
to be
very recent. That's very
reincarnated.
recent. Yeah. Well, I have been very open about my dealings with him, but maybe some people haven't heard, so I'll kind of explain a little bit. But Pascal's a weird combination of things because on the one hand, I like the man, and I think actually the real Pascal is a good-hearted man, but I do believe that his ego was so shattered by the fact that being part of the kind of elite community that he found out that they had tricked him in regard to the jab, that I think he couldn't handle it. I think his ego boundaries were shattered. I think that he was, reaching for any kind of help that he could get. And this is when a person is open to being possessed. I think that he thinks he's JFK because that was his hero. He wanted to be JFK, whatever. So the entity that took him over was run by the dark side, a dark magician, and is basically trying to run him now as possession takes place that way. And so he doesn't always make sense. You can decide what you want. I told him to his face before our interview that I was going to be, kind of giving him a lot of hard questions and stuff, and that wasn't going to be, just a friendly talk. And he was fine with it. And after the interview, he called me up to tell me he loved it. He loved me. And then less than 24 hours, he completely switched and started calling me names and saying he was going to arrest me, saying he did arrest me. Well, of course, it didn't happen. But, in his mind, I mean, the reason he wanted to arrest me is because I actually wrote to him within 24 hours. I psychically got a download saying that he'd been possessed and that I needed to give him, sort of a help, some kind of help. So I thought, I got the information that I needed to tell him. So I did. I texted him and he didn't like it and started turning against me. So
I see.
I mean, one of the problems with his testimony is, of course, that he was coming on camera and on all these people's shows that I watched, and the hosts just let him talk and let him say things like that Jews were not human, they should all be killed. I mean, to me, that is not acceptable. I don't think that we need another Hitler. I don't want to hear somebody mimicking Hitler, and it's just insane. So I called him on it. People didn't like it. Some people like Hitler, I guess. They want another Hitler, and they're fans of Hitler. And so then they attacked me, and it got very controversial. I got hate mail like you won't believe, which I don't even understand why people would be in favor of a man who wants to kill part of the human race. That's insane, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So, that's controversial. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Well, I'm glad that you like me, as to why you're probably here. And I would say that the only people that are trying to mess with me because they don't want me to bring out my information is the dark forces. And, just like all of us that are out there exposing the truth, we're being messed with by dark entities, right? Even I'm sure you have your a good share of being messed with throughout your 20 years of being in the limelight and exposing the truth. But I also know that I have special protection by the guardians, by the angels, whatever you want to call them, the good beings,
Yes.
as you do, Carrie. And, like I said, despite our first interview, when I first came into the circuit here, I hold nothing against you. I think that, your way of interviewing is who you are, Carrie. It's who you are. And I respect that. And that's why I kept my cool. And that's why I continue to support your work. And I've met you in person now a couple of times, and you have a really good energy about yourself, and I really like you. even though there are certain things we disagree on, but that's okay because we could agree to disagree. It's friends because we still have one common enemy, and that is, the negative forces that have been ruling this world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see if I have any more questions. I mean, feel free to take questions from the audience if you want. If you see it, do you see the chat box?
Oh, well, yeah, but it's going by really quickly, so it's a bit hard to grab anything. I do have to say that I have to go at a certain point. I don't know if I think we've been doing this for quite some time, right?
I believe so, about an hour and 34 minutes.
Oh, yeah, no, I have to go.
No problem.
Sorry. Yeah, I have.
Tell us where people could reach you and any endeavors, any projects that you are involved in that you want to share.
Well, projectcamelotportal.com is my main website. And there are other URLs that go to the same place, which is projectcamelot.org, projectcamelot.tv. We were never able to get projectcamelot.com. Someone took it in the early days and never would sell it to us. We don't know who it is, but we couldn't get that. So, but the projectcamelotportal.com is kind of like the well-known, I think, URL. I have tons, as I say, of interviews. A good over 1,000 of them are free, well over 1,000. But we do have a subscription-based service now because I got banned from YouTube 3 years ago. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago during COVID. So they let all my ET interviews go by. Most of them didn't give me strikes for that. But the minute I started interviewing alternative doctors over the COVID thing, they gave me strike after strike after strike. So that's when I got banned from YouTube. We were making money to stay alive on advertising on YouTube, even though they take half pretty much. But since then I started this subscription service. So we try to put, and it's a little, unbalanced, but basically it's all the recent interviews are out for free for at least a month after broadcast. And then they go in behind a firewall, but we're a little behind right now because I have trouble with hiring, admins to help work on my site and such like that. But it's more or less like that kind of thing. And that's the only part of the subscription services for the last, say, 2 or 3 years max, since the date that I got banned on YouTube. So that's how we survive. So I really appreciate when someone wants to help us. It's less than the price of a latte, as I say, and per month. And so it's dirt cheap, basically. What else can I say? I have advertisements where I'm an affiliate of the companies, and they're at the lower part of my website. And all of those are products I use, and they're people that I've interviewed. So it's kind of a unique approach to advertising in that sense, and so I do support the people that I have ads for on my site. I have a book, as you can see, it's on Amazon. It's around close to 5 stars or on 5 stars, whatever it is. And whatever else. I think that's about it. I do have an upcoming, I'm speaking at conferences. For a long time, they banned me from conferences. Nobody would let me speak at conferences for years and years. But now suddenly everything changed and they want me to speak, which might be part of this ET disclosure thing, build up to Bluebeam, whatever it is. Because a lot of the conferences are run behind the scene by the CIA, even when people don't know it. But anyway, so I am speaking. In fact, I'm on the, the 17th as part of a conference that's called Full Disclosure Conference. I'm going to speak in Florida, in St. Petersburg, Florida, at the Full Disclosure Conference. And that goes on from what I understand, the 13th to the 18th. I'm going to be there from the 14th to the 18th, and I'll speak on the 17th. I'm not sure what I'll do for all those days before I speak, but hang out, talk to people, whatever. So I'm doing that. And I'm also speaking at a conference in Tucson, Arizona. And actually, these things are all things I put on my Telegram. So the best thing to do is go to my Telegram every day. I put a massive amount on my Telegram. I put articles I like, things I don't like. I rant sometimes at 3 a.m. if something I've been researching, because I research so much all the time.
Mhm.
I work a lot. I'm sort of a workaholic. So yeah, other than that, so go to my website, projectcamelotportal.com, look across the top, all the social media links. I'm on Truth Social, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. I've got 2 channels on Facebook. Right now there's a fake Project Camelot channel that emerged on Facebook that ends their URL with 2024. Obviously, I've been operational for 20 years. My URL is not that. So they're lying, they're faking me, whatever. Yeah, but this is a constant problem. My Rumble is where I put all my recent interviews. So I do live on YouTube, and then I move it to Rumble. So that's how I'm kind of operating now.
All right, good to know. I'm also going to be putting your links in the description for those that want to. You're welcome. Want to keep up with her updates, and on her end, for those that are here on her Facebook, make sure you guys subscribe to my channel, because I also give updates about 2-3 times a week. So with that have said, Carrie, it is a pleasure, and thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you soon. Once I'm sure I'll run into you in one of the conferences again.
Thank you, Ismael.
You're welcome, Carrie. You have a beautiful evening. We'll talk soon. And may the God force be with each and every single one of you. Talk soon. Bye.
Okay.